Have you ever wondered how commentators can manage to keep a straight face and relay sports proceedings effectively? Well, sorry to ruin the illusion, but that isn't always the case. And sometimes these imperfections elevate the game and its events to legendary levels, such is the case for this next list. Here is a list of the funniest commentator reactions of all time, so be sure to watch till the end of the video to see if your favorite moment made the list. Number 7. Joe Rogan, Jon Anik, and Dominic Cruz lose it. The UFC 232 fight between Uriah Hall and Bevan Lewis got pretty heated. In round 3, many believe that Uriah Hall may have delivered the calling card of his career, which spans a hefty 13 years, by delivering a volatile and inexplicably thunderous knockout. The fight itself was very high stakes for Hall, who'd lost 4 of his previous matches. This knockout, delivered via his single counter right hand, eventually led to a victory that was a much-needed win for him. But what's arguably more entertaining was how the commentators reacted to the singular moment. Commentator Joe Rogan, who was mid-sentence praising the quality young contenders in the game, never got to finish his thought as he grabbed both Cruz and Anik sitting beside him on the commentator panel. This is especially hilarious when you notice just how dramatically both Jon Anik and Dominic Cruz also reacted. With loud exclamations overlapping one another, all of the men on the panel were understandably, yet sensationally, overwhelmed. Obviously, as professionals, these commentators recovered quickly and went back to commentating on Hall's tendency to look for match-ending knockouts. But the little glimpse that the audiences present and listening were made privy to highlight how giddy and excited these commentators genuinely get over the matches they work on. Number 6. Joe Rogan, Jon Anik, and Dominic Cruz again. On the same day, the UFC 232 fight that garnered similar reactions but elevated, and in less than a minute after the commencement, was the fight between Amanda Nunes and Chris Cyborg Justine, the latter of which took the match-ending blow just 51 seconds into the match. Both fighters moved in perfect sync up until the blows started coming, at which point the fight got very heated very quickly, which speaks to the skill level of both fighters. This victory was also a huge deal to fighter Amanda Nunes, since it officially landed her the title of the first female fighter to win UFC titles for multiple weight classes. What caught our attention, however, was how Anik, Rogan, and Cruz reacted to the fight in its 1-minute lifespan. You could see and hear their commentary getting more frantic per second as the final knockout punch was delivered. The camera pointed at Rogan, displayed the commentator with his hands on his head, absolutely losing his mind. Beside him, Anik is faring much better as he stood up exclaiming his surprise. Soon enough, all 3 men stood up on their commentator table and started looking around, trying to process the events of the fight itself. Number 5. LeBron James's lack of regard for human life, according to Kevin Harlan. This definitely tops the chart for one of the funniest commentaries of all time, as Kevin Harlan left the room in chuckles way back in 2008 with what some consider to be the most poetic commentary quote to date. This gem came about after LeBron James, then only 24, posterized Kevin Garnett, the big ticket, in the 2008 Eastern Conference semifinals. He turned the entire trajectory of the game around because, before the shot, the Cavaliers' chances of victory were looking really slim. LeBron James's historically swift dunk over Kevin Garnett was so infectiously surprising that it prompted commentator Kevin Harlan, who has frequently been responsible for funny commentary one-liners, to let out an exclamatory "LeBron James with no regard for human life" to express his sentiments, right before slipping back into his usual commentary, making sure to gush over this dunk and its greatness. Number 4. Kevin Harlan, NBA commentator or wordsmith. Kevin Harlan is undoubtedly a commentator most dedicated to providing listeners and viewers of the matches with memorable quotes. One such quote was spoken in the match between the Houston Rockets and the Dallas Mavericks in 2005, when Tracy McGrady went in for a swift dunk, unbeknownst to anyone in the room, especially Sean Bradley. But what made this goal truly memorable for generations to come was Kevin Harlan's delightful surprise as he commentated on the dunk in a Harlan-specific manner. He enunciated the words, "Oh, he just sucked the gravity right out of the building," and the truth in his words is made more apparent by the fact that Kevin Harlan spoke them a mere second or less after T-Mac's dunk. Ironically enough, despite giving the game his all and finishing with 8 rebounds, 10 assists, and 28 points, which gave the team a 2-point lead over the Mavericks, McGrady was unable to make it to the playoffs. This was because the Mavericks won the next 2 games in Houston. Regardless, what's remembered to this date is Harlan's hilariously well-timed commentary, still making the moment retain its magic. Number 3. Harlan, yet again, but as a style critic. It would be fair to admit that Kevin Harlan has earned his spot in the list as the wittiest commentator to date. In 2013, he may have tried to switch careers to a stylist or an aviary manager and decided his current workplace was the best space to polish his skills, because we can think of no other reason for Harlan rigging on Chris Anderson and his Birdman routine. Chris Anderson made a dunk so impressive when there was less than a minute to go in the third quarter of the game between the Bucks and Heat that it may have rendered Harlan's commentating capabilities entirely entirely useless. The dunk, that was made with two hands, was impressive in its own right, but not as impressive as Harlan's reaction to it. As the commentator said, "Here comes the Birdman." After this, he continued on, good-naturedly making pounds regarding Chris's brand. He made a mention to Anderson, flapping his wings and soaring for a sweet flush. And even that wasn't enough, because after all that, he went on to discuss Anderson's hairdo, saying that when one's hairdo is that aerodynamically designed, it enables them to make such shots. He gave special attention to that sweet mohawk, which apparently helps him fly. Number 2, "Let's go home," said Dirk Nowitzki. Although not uttered by a professional commentator, it would be a crime to go on with this list without mentioning this classic scene from the 2011-2012 NBA season. This season was especially tense, especially since the Mavs, who were playing against the Timberwolves, had to do so after a month-long lockout. Dirk, originally an NBA player, had to sit this game out, like his previous two, due to a knee injury. By and by, Nowitzki was handed a microphone, one that he would use to make meme history. Jason Terry, responsible for Dirk Nowitzki's outburst, made the dunk with swift skill, despite being hindered by Brandon Wright. He made the shot from a decent distance behind the three-point line, which is impressive in itself, and Nowitzki obviously agreed, as he shouted with a shared sentiment of, "Shut it down, let's go home." This sentiment, unbeknownst to him and everyone attending the game that day, would go on to become global, in a way. Dirk Nowitzki's outburst, with his crazy eyes and gleeful smile, captured by the camera itself, would go on to be immortalized in the deepest parts of the internet. Ironically enough, the Mavs ended up losing the game to the Timberwolves 105-90 anyway. Number 1, a fall so good, it makes you believe in a higher power. The WWE match known as the King of the Ring back in 1998 brought us this gem. It's not funny in dialogue as it is in circumstance and comedic timing. The Hell in a Cell match between The Undertaker and Mankind took place on June 28, 1998 to be specific, was a brutal and memorable match. One of the reasons for this memorability was The Undertaker throwing Mankind off the Hell in a Cell cage as they both stood on top of it. This singular action, which caused an uproar of outcries, also caused Jim Ross, arguably WWE's most well-known commentator, to snap and shoutily repeat, "By God Almighty, good God Almighty, that killed him." He went on to commentate further, claiming that as God is his witness, the fall had broken Foley in half. This, of course, was not true in the literal sense, so we can only assume how he feels claiming God as his witness in a scenario where he did not possess all the details. Although, one cannot fault him for being overwhelmed. Right as Mankind drops on and subsequently through the Spanish announcer's table, the bewilderment in Ross's voice becomes apparent. Mick Foley, or Mankind, did not move for a small while, which had the audience tense and needed to be moved on a stretcher out of the Civic Arena. Suffice it to say, Funny does not even begin to cover these reactions or witty one-liners. Let us know your favorite down in the comments below. And with that, we wrap up this video. Thanks for watching, and give us a like if you enjoyed the video, and share it with your friends and family. For more videos like this, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications by clicking on the bell icon.